Writing for Academic Success in Psychology, Unit 2. This video is about 17 minutes long, but if you complete all the tasks, you should expect to spend about 30 to 40 minutes on the unit in total. In this unit, we're going to consider some of the aspects of academic writing that make it different from everyday language, focusing on grammar and academic phraseology. By phraseology, I mean longer strings of words with particular meanings or purposes which are commonly used in academic writing, such as recent evidence suggests or research has shown that. So let's get started. In order to understand why academic language is different from other types of writing or from everyday speech, we need to recognize that language varies according to the context, purpose, and audience, the situation or environment in which we are using language, what we are using language to do, and who the reader or listener is. These features influence the genres of text you produce in the university context, such as essays, lab reports, and case studies. We'll consider genre in more detail in Unit 4. Academic writing also involves referencing, unlike many other genres of writing, and we'll look at APA-style referencing in Unit 6. But for today, we're going to focus on features of the grammar of academic writing, which involves features such as formality, complexity, objectivity, explicitness, and precision. Starting with formality. University assignments are formal and so require grammar that follows the conventions of standard written English, which we considered in the proofreading task in Unit 1. Formal writing also requires more formal vocabulary that avoids slang and everyday colloquialisms, such as eliminate instead of get rid of. We'll look at this aspect of formality in more detail in Unit 3 when we consider academic vocabulary. Academic language also tends to be more complex and densely packaged than everyday spoken and written language. This often involves using more noun-based phrases than verbs, such as evolution rather than how we have evolved, for example. We can also change participle forms of verbs, i.e. the forms like failing or failed, into an adjective that we can then combine with another noun, as in recurring phases, rather than phases that recur. Notice that recurring phases is part of a larger noun-based phrase here, a succession of recurring phases. These kinds of long and complex noun-based phrases are a hallmark of academic writing. Pay attention to this when you're reading and notice how often they are used. To practice this kind of writing, complete the following exercise, pausing the video to complete the task and then restarting when you're ready. Feedback. In 1, enables us to formulate precise questions becomes enables the formulation of precise questions. In 2, what a set of symbols mean becomes the meaning of a set of symbols. And in 3, where they originated from becomes their origins. In 4, that we transmit becomes transmitted, and in 5, that we find becomes found. Notice how this can also result in more objectivity and conciseness, two features we are going to discuss next in this unit. We avoid the use of us and we, making the sentences more impersonal and objective, and often reduce the number of words required to convey our points, making them more concise. Academic audiences value objectivity, preferring unbiased, impersonal language that avoids reference to the first or second person, i.e. I, we, or you, and does not express too overtly the personal emotions or feelings of the writer. In reflective writing tasks, this is not so much the case, because the purpose of such tasks is necessarily more personal. But in essays, lab reports, and so on, objectivity is preferred. This doesn't mean your opinions and evaluations should not be communicated to your reader at all. Indeed, evaluation is an important critical thinking skill which you need to demonstrate at university level. However, in objective writing, such opinions are often disguised in language that appears more impersonal. So let's look at some ways in which we can achieve this. Reference to first or second person can be avoided by using passive forms, such as X can be avoided, rather than we can avoid X. We can also employ other impersonal language, such as it and their constructions, often in combination with passive forms. So instead of however, we now generally accept that, we can write however, it is now generally accepted that. And instead of in 1989 I found only one such publication, while in 2009 I documented more than 30, we can write in 1989 there was only one such publication, while in 2009 more than 30 were documented. We can also avoid mentioning ourselves explicitly by using passive signalling. So instead of writing as I or we noted previously, we can instead write as noted previously. You may hear or read that passive forms should be avoided for the sake of clarity and simplicity. However, though it's true that overusing passive forms unnecessarily can make a text feel overly complicated, they do perform a number of important roles in academic writing and should not be avoided when there is a clear purpose for using them, such as objectivity. Objectivity also requires that we recognise that there is not necessarily a right or wrong answer, and that we cannot necessarily prove or assume something to be a fact, which requires us to be more cautious in our claims, suggesting rather than proving, or saying something might be the case rather than that it is. This is sometimes known as hedging or modality in grammar books or writing guides. This table summarises some of the key ways we can convey caution in academic writing. We can utilise a range of verbs like suggest, indicate, assume, along with modal verbs, adjectives, adverbs and nouns like may or might, possible, possibly or possibility. We can also combine these with impersonal it or their constructions, as in it is possible that, or there is a possibility that. Now let's see if you can identify objectivity in a text. Identify the words and phrases that make the following text more objective through being impersonal and cautious. As usual, pause the video to complete the task and then restart when you're ready for feedback. So first of all, we have 3 examples of it constructions using passive forms and verbs signalling caution, such as assume. We also have a number of modal adjectives, including likely, possible and unlikely, as well as the modal adverb potentially. There are also 2 examples of the modal verb may, and 1 example of a frequency adverb, often. Finally, we have examples of cautious verbs like suggest and indicate, and a passive signal, as mentioned above. This results in a text which is cautious, objective and impersonal in style, but which still conveys the writer's evaluation of the model they are discussing. Another aspect of academic language valued by psychologists is precision and conciseness, as this often results in clear writing. For example, using precise and specific words such as argued, concluded or conceded, rather than words with a more general meaning or scope like said or stated, makes the meaning clearer for the reader. Many assignments you'll write will also have word limits, meaning that if you're repetitive or use more words than necessary to communicate a point, you'll have less room to add further points of substance that could improve your grades. Likewise, explicitness is an important aspect of academic writing because in all university contexts we are dealing with complex and often abstract ideas, and as noted in Unit 1, the reader cannot ask a writer for clarification, so arguments and points need to be explicitly organised and signalled so that the reader can easily follow the logic of your argument. Linking words and phrases that indicate these relationships, such as cause, contrast, addition and emphasis, are one way of achieving this. We use some of these in everyday speech and writing too, of course, but the ones we use in everyday speech, such as and, but and so, tend to be used less often in academic writing, with a wider range of more formal words used instead. This table summarises some of the examples of the words or phrases you can use to make your argument explicit for the reader. Now see if you can identify the words and phrases that signal links between ideas and points in the text used in the last task. Can you also identify what kind of logical relationship is being signalled? For example, contrast, addition, conclusion? As usual, pause the video to complete the task and then restart when you're ready for feedback. Feedback. As mentioned above, the more everyday linking words like and, or and but are still used in academic writing, and we see 3 examples of and used in this extract. However, other words indicating addition are also used, such as further, and a range of other relationships are also indicated, including order, finally, summarizing, in sum, reiteration, as mentioned above, contrast, though and however, and exemplification, such as. Another kind of explicitness used in academic writing is when we use this or these to refer back to previously mentioned ideas, often accompanied by what we might call a summary word or phrase. For example, in this extract from a classic Psychology Review article, the phrase, "this natural motivational tendency," is used to refer back to the whole idea expressed in the previous sentence, and to link it to the next point. The word "this" tells the reader that a link is being made to the immediately preceding idea, while natural motivational tendency summarizes what all the examples in the previous sentence are intended to illustrate. Let's practice this. For the following pairs of sentences, choose a suitable summary word or phrase to complete the second sentence. As always, pause the video and then restart when you've completed the task. Feedback. In one, a number of words might work, including decrease, fall, or reduction. Improvement may also be possible, but could be considered biased as it assumes that the reduction is positive, so should perhaps be avoided for the sake of objectivity. On the other hand, decline might be considered to have negative connotations. We often talk about declining standards, for instance, or suffering a decline, so this might also be less appropriate in this context. In 2, you might have chosen situation or circumstance, and in 3, developments, advances, or improvements would all work. Note here that the writer's argument rests on the assumption that the developments are positive rather than negative, so using improvements here would be more appropriate than in 1. Finally, the word that best summarizes the first sentence in 4 is behavior. Finally, let's consider phraseology. When we write at university, we write for a purpose. More generally, to develop or show our knowledge and understanding, and more specifically to achieve particular goals in an assignment, such as introducing a topic, defining a term, comparing and contrasting ideas, making claims, or drawing conclusions. Academic discourse communities all make use of common phrases to achieve these goals, and in doing so assist their readers by signalling their purposes in writing a particular sentence or paragraph. These kinds of phrases are incredibly useful when you first start writing at university, as they can not only help you to recognise what academic written language tends to look like, but also provide you with ready-made phrases to get you started writing in a more academic way if you're not used to it. Look at these examples of such phrases. Can you identify the purpose or function of each of these examples? Match examples 1 to 5 with the purposes listed in A to E. As usual, pause the recording to complete the task and then restart the video in order to get feedback. So how did you do? The right answers are as follows. 1 indicates a potential causal relationship. Note how may and some make the claim more tentative and cautious than it otherwise might have been. 2 classifies. 3 discusses unexpected research outcomes or findings. Note how the contrast or contradiction is made explicit through the phrase contrary to expectations, and the noun expectations is used instead of, for example, what we expected. 4 identifies a study's weakness, and 5 defines a term. We can see how the use of the passive form is understood here avoids reference to the writer, as well as allowing the term being defined to be placed at the beginning of the sentence, rather than, e.g., we understand the term X to mean. To conclude this unit on the grammar and phraseology of academic writing, here are 3 particularly useful resources for helping you to get started writing in the more formal, complex, objective, precise and explicit ways required in academic writing. The first is the Academic Phrase Bank, from which the phrases in the last task were drawn. The Academic Phrase Bank is a free online resource provided by the University of Manchester, which aims to provide you with examples of some of the phraseological nuts and bolts of writing, organised according to the main sections of a research paper or dissertation. The second is the Using English for Academic Purposes website by Andy Gillett at www.uefap.com. There is a wealth of information, strategies and exercises on this site, and I encourage you to explore the website and all that it offers. However, under the section on writing, there is a subsection on the features of academic writing, covering many of the features discussed in this unit, so you may find this a useful place to start. Finally, the APA publishes a wealth of information on the APA style and referencing system, including a useful blog answering a wide range of questions about the APA style. These can be accessed at www.apastyle.org and blog.apastyle.org. And remember, if you have any questions, just drop me a line at k.bannister@uel.ac.uk.